hello, everybody. Hi, hello, and welcome to the GMS Magazine podcast. I am Paco Garcia.
And I'm Sean Harris, also known as RVC Bard.
And people, as you were able to hear before we even started, Sean and I were already discussing about payment in the RPG industry. If you were looking at the video as we are recording it, you would see me doing quotes marks a lot. Because something has happened this week. Okay, I don't know what company it is. I don't care. I'm not going to inquire about it. But it would appear that a company has posted a job opening for a position that, for what I hear in the Twitterverse, it basically entitled to do, or required to do two jobs at the same time, and he paid a pittance, and he required to work from the office. It wasn't even a remote, so it was on-location work, which is a bit, so it's very bad. So I don't know how much they were paying, but it was an USA location, so I can imagine that they were paying really, really bad, and the Twitter went ballistic, with good reason, on the matter, with people saying all sorts of really annoying things like, well, you're doing what you like to do, so why should you get paid any more than you get paid? Because that's how people sound in my head when they say things like that. So that's the situation. Sean, what do you think?
I generally fall on the side of pay people.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know why the arts, and I consider like the stuff involving like publishing and whatnot in the arts. This mentality that we have, especially in the United States, that art isn't work.
Oh, let me stop you there. That is not just in the United States. I have people around me, people I know physically, people I have actually managed to not punch in the face, saying that role-playing is just a hobby and therefore nobody should make money out of it because everything should be just for fun.
Okay. I'll pay my rent with that, okay?
Yeah, no, so did I. Yeah, absolutely, every month.
Yeah, I pay it in fun and exposure. I'll see how well that goes with the landlord.
I tell you, if fun and exposure were a currency, I would be fucking Bezos by now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, yeah, and then I had to remind people, people die of exposure. I'm just saying.
Yes. So it's not just in the US. Believe me, it happens absolutely everywhere that the arts are considered to be amateurish and thus not worthy of payment.
Yeah, which is bullshit because art is definitely work. Art is hard. Okay, it's like, I guess I can do this deep dive into why people don't think of art as work or that the labor you put into art as labor, but I'm going to put it right here. It's like people don't think of the labor that goes into art. I guess it's just like everybody who can like write a grammatically correct sentence is somehow a writer. And it's like, not really. Or everybody who can like doodle something is, a visual artist or whatever. And no, that's not true. Art requires rigor and discipline. It is work. And doing this work for someone else's benefit, you need to pay people. It's like, on the one hand, it's sort of like, and I almost was going to be like, well, if it's a labor of love between friends, then maybe it's like, you know what? I'm just going to say it. It's like, err on the side of paying people and not just the pittance. Pay them what you would pay a professional in that field. Not the low-balling freelance bullshit. I mean, like actual. Can you tell I freelanced before? Like, like actual market rates, actual like if you want professional, it's like this. If you want professional quality output from people working on your project, you need to invest in professional quality output. So that means don't skimp on paying people when you come up with your budgets for your Kickstarter projects. It means don't. It's like, look, and it's often shows up in the writing and the editorial stuff, because I think with drawing and with the art and the layout and the graphic design, people actually realize that those are jobs that people have, rather than like necessarily hobbies or just something people do for fun. So, and then there's like but even so, like everybody involved with the creating the stuff that makes the product, that nobody gets paid enough. I'm just gonna say that nobody gets paid enough. I know that. It's just when the outcome is tangible, or at least not something where people say, well, I could do this myself. There tends to be more, I wouldn't say more money for it, but people tend to justify the cost a bit easier. But it doesn't mean it's good by a long shot. A lot of artists talk about how they flat out didn't get paid despite agreements to get paid. Or they offer a pittance for something super complicated. It's like, yeah.
The thing is that it's a very complicated thing. I mean, the only thing I'm in slight disagreement with you is the bit about if you're writing, as far as I'm concerned, you're a writer. I mean, if you don't write very well and you don't have the discipline and the rigor that you were mentioning about, well, then you're likely to be a shit writer. But then that's fine. You want to be a shit writer, whatever. But you're a writer. You're just probably not a writer worth paying. But okay, if you want to call yourself a writer, by all means. You're just lowering the bar so people can look better when they compare themselves to you. I have no issues with that. And the same goes with painting. It's the truth. You see some paintings out there and you look at them and you think, what? Wait a second. If I have to pay you $50 to do this, I'm saying $50 like I couldn't say anything, and I have to pay this other person who is way better than you $50 for doing it, so who do you think I'm going to go for? You're just helping me make my decision. So do you want to call yourself an artist? Yes, by all means, do. You are an artist. You're expressing yourself. Fine. No problem at all. You're expecting me to pay you and treat you as a professional? Hell no. That's a different match altogether. But okay, I don't care if people call themselves writers. I think, if you want to be a writer, you want to call yourself a writer, by all means, do. It's okay. No issues at all. But it is very, very hard, as you say, to make money. And I wonder, though, where the root of the problem is. Because today, the average role-playing game costs pretty much the same that it did 30 years ago.
Right.
The price of games have not gone up with inflation at the same rate. But and the commissions and the prices that people pay freelancers haven't really gone up all that much either. I bet you anything that writers 25 or 30 years ago were still making 5 to 10 cents a word.
Right.
And today, very few of them can actually afford to charge 10 cents a word.
Right.
I know just a handful of them. And I know a lot of writers in the role-playing game arena. And very few can actually go to any publishing and say, no, it's 10 cents a word, or I'm not really putting my finger on a keyboard. So where is the root of the problem? Why is this happening?
I don't know. It's probably something really complicated that has to do with economics and how economic trends reflect labor trends and vice versa. And this is stuff where I had to go back to school and get an economics degree or something to understand. But I think it might be related to wages kind of stagnating across the board, not just in publishing or the like, but any kind of non-C-suite jobs, that when we're talking about how do you say blue collar jobs or working class jobs. It's like the people who have always been rich are getting astronomically richer, whereas people who've always been kind of keeping their head above water are still kind of in the same place. And it's like, well, no, wages haven't really, wages in general have not risen with inflation or with the costs.
At all.
Even though making money are really making a shit ton of money. So it's not a question of lack of resources.
No, absolutely, I agree.
And I was like, I don't know much, but I know it's not that. And it's just so it's just like, and especially and I also think that the distinction as far as and I think also because most role-playing games rely on freelancers to get their product out, there's also skirting labor laws and stuff like that that accounts for it as well, I think. Because it's people are always, I wouldn't say people, I shouldn't say people. Capitalists always want more for less. And and so it's it doesn't surprise me. It's just I don't know. It's just it doesn't surprise me that that's the case, but I guess it surprises me a little bit that that's acceptable.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think there are many reasons why things are being so poorly paid. Some of them fairer than others. Firstly, there is an issue, and I am trying to measure my words so this doesn't sound the wrong way. But globalization has actually harmed an awful lot the possibilities some people have to increase their prices. Why do I say this? For instance, an awful lot of the 3D animations that you see nowadays in films is done in India.
Right.
Now, Indian people have exactly the same capability to create incredible material than anybody in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in New Zealand, or absolutely anywhere else. So the work, even with the cultural differences, is there. Now, the standard of living in India affords companies, i.e. capitalists, to say, I am not going to pay you the same thing that I pay somebody in the United States or in Australia or in New Zealand. I'm going to pay you a salary that's high for India, which is about a tenth or less of what would be in the US. So I'm saving a lot of money. I'm getting exactly the same thing. And I'm not going to hire the person from LA who used to do the work for me before I met you, Indian person. So that globalization has hurt an awful lot, because finding cheap labor, and that cheap labor is cheap not because they're not worth it, but because they are prisoners of their own system.
Right. Yeah, they're being exploited, pretty much.
Correct.
They're being exploited. Because if there were laws that said, if you're an American company, you have to pay American salaries, regardless of where your employees are, you might curb that a little bit.
Correct. So that would be it. But they don't do it. Why? Because what they want to see is the production, and governments don't give a shit. They just don't give a shit. So I think that has hindered us somewhat. For instance, that could have hindered an awful lot a lot of illustrators. Writers maybe less, but illustrators definitely. I know an awful lot of people who go to websites like Fiverr, which is not as bad as it used to be. But my God, it was absolutely horrendous. Do you know Fiverr?
Not really. I think I heard of them or in passing.
Right. Essentially, Fiverr started as you ask somebody to do something for a Fiverr. So people would design a logo for a Fiverr or write a story for a Fiverr. That would be $5. That's all it would cost. Now it has changed, and people they have tiers, and they can charge from, if you want something simple, I'm going to charge you $10, but then just going to be just a doodle. If you want to pay me $50, then I will do this. And if you want to pay me $500, then I'll do that. Mm-hmm. But if you want something very cheap, I can do it for you. Mm-hmm. That's how the site works. And you find an insane amount of people from places like India, Iran, basically countries where a $5 goes a long way. Mm-hmm. So that kind of thing, I reckon, has hurt a tiny little part of the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, especially with the internet, making it all you had to do is set up a website.
Exactly.
Versus like in the past, before the internet, I know it's hard to imagine, but like before the internet, where like moving internationally was like a major thing. Mm. You had to invest a lot of resources into doing that, or have resources already. Like it wasn't something that you could just set up from the beginning. And yeah, it's true. It's like a race to the bottom of the barrel, and not even in terms of quality. It's just in terms of price. Yes. And when I say that they're exploiting these people, it's not just exploiting the local conditions, but like the people doing this may or may not be aware that they're getting paid a fraction of what their work is worth. Mm-hmm. And and it's sort of like, and even if they are aware, but they might not care. It's like, well, it's people can be selfish. So it's like, I don't care what this impact is on the industry as a whole. At least I got my little bit. And there's also like things like, labor organizing, like how, like, in America, like unions used to be a thing. Now, not so much. I mean, there's still some, but they're not as potent a force as they used to be.
No, or they should be.
Yeah, and I'm not even talking about like globally, where like in these countries where people are getting paid a pittance compared to what they could, compared to the quality of work they put out.
Correct. What they deserve, basically, it's just that they deserve it. It's unfair that just because you are, 7 or 8 hours by playing away from a different place, your work is suddenly worth $5,000 instead of $50,000.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But okay, so I think that's one thing that's not helping generally. I think this is a minor thing in the RPG industry, but it's not helping.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Something else that I don't think is not helping at all, and this is going to be very controversial, and some people are going to be upset with me, but that's fine.
He said it, not me.
Well, no, I don't think you're going to be upset with me, but some people are going to be upset with me. I think that the RPG gamers, don't value the games they buy, and B, are way too stingy to want to pay the price they should have to pay if they were paying what the games are worth. Not all gamers, okay? Not all gamers, but an awful lot of them, enough to keep prices down.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of wanted to be like, well, it's like, yeah, because I look at like because I know in the past when I was depending on my parents for disposable income, I bought a lot more RPGs than I do now, and they were more affordable, and I think my parents would be more willing to spend money on them. Mm-hmm. But nowadays it's like I kind of expect the average role-playing core rulebook. Let me just say core rulebook. I'm not talking about supplements or anything like that. To be, $50+, and that's like I think. Let me see. One of the most expensive purchases I've made. The 3rd edition Exalted, and I didn't even get like the glossy page one. I got like the standard like sturdy copy version. And honestly, it's kind of funny because it's like, I think the audience wants to have it two ways. Like, you want super high quality product, but you don't want to pay for it. Like, you want the glossy pages, you want like professional quality art on every page, you want professional quality editing on every page, professional quality layout on every page, professional, like, and when I say professional quality, I mean, like, this is stuff like, this is not, you and your friends getting together, like, do some, like, fold some printer paper in half and staple along the spine. This is like an actual professional quality product that, like, if this were like a novel or something, or a graphic novel or something, you would be paying $75 to $100 per book.
Correct.
But, because it's a role-playing game, it's like, you think that, like, all 3 books together is supposed to be $30. I'm going to look at you like you're out of your mind. Because I'm looking at, like, the D&D Monster Manual here. It's like professional quality layout, professional quality art on every glossy page. And I think when I bought it at the time, I had to wait until like some kind of discount came on, where it's like, you buy all 3, you get like a 20% discount or something. But it was ridiculously cheap considering what I got out of it. And a lot of the indie stuff that I like is printed on, like, their paperbacks, which I'm fine with. It's like, look, do what you like. Role-playing game company, do what you have to do to put the material out there in a format that works and doesn't, like, completely screw people over because they worked on this project with you. And it's like, so yeah, I think it's not just role-playing, like, gamers being cheap. It's that they are cheap and they want, like my mom says, you have champagne taste in a beer pocketbook. So it's like, okay, you have, actual, so you like want the actual champagne from the region in France, but your budget is, what do you call it? Budweiser. And I think, kind of modulate expectations a bit. It's like, yeah, we've been kind of spoiled for a few decades. Like, we're so used to, like, and I don't want to blame D&D for this, but this is how most people get their introduction to the hobby of what to expect. So they go in through D&D, they see this, multi-million-dollar professional product and expect all games to be like that.
But the thing is, I would be happy for people to expect all games to be like that if they were also willing to understand that the costs of the cost of producing something that good is going to be higher for a company like, say, Green Ronin, that it's going to be for Wizards of the Coast. Right. Because Green Ronin is going to print, I don't know, 1,000, whereas Wizards of the Coast is going to print and sell 20,000. I'm just saying numbers off the top of my head. So if people understood that the same book published by Green Ronin has to cost $15 or $20 more, because there is a massive difference between the return that a company is going to get from a book than another, then I would be happy with that demand, as long as you shut up and pay what the game is worth. But people are not prepared to do that. People will look, as you say, will look to D&D, or will look to the Call of Cthulhu, will look to these big, massive productions from companies that can actually afford it, and then look at other people and say, why are you giving me this when, you're asking for the same amount of money? It's unfair. And it's, I don't know, it really isn't unfair at all. It's just how it must be.
Yeah. And this is where I would like plug the indie scene, where it's like, expand your horizons, role-playing gamers. The fact that I spend less money, like the fact that per game I spend less money on indie games than I do on major ones, speaks very well in their favor, because it's like, there are ways to have like a really good-looking product without having to do all the bells and whistles you come to expect with like a, a behemoth type company production. I don't expect D&D quality role playing. I don't expect glossy pages, art on every page, professional layout, and all this extra stuff, all these bells and whistles, for this game that for like $20. I'm sorry, I don't expect that.
No.
And but the things that I did spend money on, like my favorite games are the ones that I didn't spend a lot of money on, and I did sometimes go out and seek free games, because some people just want to do that and put that out in the world, and that's great. So I'm willing to, look for it and dig for it. So it's like, if you're not willing to pay for it, find something else to play that you don't have to pay for, so that you don't have to pay as much for. And also, like I said again, modulate your expectations. Like, do you really? It's like with the Chronicles of Darkness stuff that I've bought recently, and it's like, yeah, it's more expensive than the old World of Darkness stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, I apologize, visual artists, for this, but I do not buy these games just for the art. I need to know, that's like, I buy it mostly for the information contained in there, so that'll tell me how to play the game. So as long as you have a complete game, I'm cool with it. And it's like, and there's also like, there was like a tiered thing with the Chronicles of Darkness stuff too, where it was like, okay, you can have the black and white, like not hard stock. It's like black and white heavy paper thing, which is what I got because that's what I could afford. Then there was like, okay, there's this other one where it was like full color bells and whistles, the PDF and all that. And then there was like another one. I forgot what the middle one was. But anyway, I couldn't afford that middle one either. So I got the best quality that I could get, that I could afford. It's like, and they're still sitting on my shelf right now. It was not like I was playing them all the time and now they're falling apart. It's just, they serve my purposes. I just want to play the game. So I don't, yeah.
I mean, I can see the appeal of something beautiful. And I can see what you mean about, D&D 3rd edition starting this, which, to be honest, I think AD&D already had it. AD&D with the box sets made the best products out there. They had some absolutely beautiful things, beautiful maps, beautiful books, beautiful absolutely everything. They've always excelled at that. But I can see why people would want that, and I don't have an issue. I mean, I am the kind of person who has gone to Kickstarter, looked at the game, and thought, I'm not interested in this game, but God, it looks gorgeous. I'm going to buy it. I've done it. I'm a sucker for beautiful things, so I'm okay with that. But yeah, people have to manage their expectations and what they want. Now, we have, however, and this is something that we need to discuss as well, the needs of the companies. Let's assume for a second, despite the fact that this company were asking for something impossible and really unfair, but what can a company do when they do need to hire somebody? Because otherwise they cannot grow, but they cannot pay even the amount of money that they would want to pay because they truly can't afford it. And I'm speaking of my own experience, okay? Because I many years ago, I think it was 2013 or 2014, I was in conversations with Modifius to go to London and work for them. But I was making £25,000 in the job I had. And going to work for Modifius would mean having to take a cut of about £6,000, which I couldn't afford. And they couldn't afford to pay me anymore because they weren't as big as they are today. And I know that they wanted to pay me more. So I'm not criticizing them at all. What can a company do when those circumstances actually happen?
Right. I'm not in the unenviable. I'm not in the very unenviable position of having that dilemma. But I do have experience producing my own work for the stage, and it's sort of like, yeah, I want to do more than offer these actors a stipend for the work they put into my play. And I know that if I actually mount a full-scale production, paying the actors significantly more would be my top priority, more than any kind of design element. So I guess I kind of teensy bit understand what the situation the company is in, like a teensy bit. Yet at the same time, I'm like, that's also like on the planning on the business end. I just like, I don't know. It's just
it's complicated. It's really complicated.
It's complicated. It's really complicated. And then there's always going to be somebody who's willing to accept those conditions. Because again, it's a race to the bottom a lot of times. And they're willing to accept those conditions where it's like, I can barely afford to survive on this, but I believe in this product or this company, or I believe in what this mission is trying to do. And it's like I said, it's like you should always err on paying people more. But yeah, it's a tough position to be in. And I'm not going to pretend that there's an easy solution, or that, or try to make it so like you have to turn back the clock and be like, woulda, coulda, shoulda, blah, blah, blah. It's like, nah, it's a really tough dilemma for anybody to be in.
Yeah, and that's the problem, that, to be honest, I don't know what the solution is, because you could say, they could go the create less glamorous product, so
right.
you can sell them cheaper and sell them more. But the thing is that A, there's no guarantee that they're going to sell anymore, and B, there is a great possibility that people are going to look at their work and say, hey, you're not producing what you used to, so I'm not going to buy anymore because this looks rubbish compared with what you used to produce.
Yeah.
And then they will lose money, and then they will be in an even more precarious situation.
Yeah. So like I said, it's tough for everybody all around. And like I say a lot of times on these podcasts, it's like, I think you might have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. In a situation where the company clearly has the funds and just wants to cut corners and be cheap, screw them.
Yeah, no. I mean, that to me is enough to actually start supporting a company. Yeah. There is absolutely no justification whatsoever to pay shit salary if your company is doing well enough. Sorry. If that means that your shareholders or your top people have to get $10,000 less a year and still make a good living, so somebody else can make a good living, tough shit.
Yeah.
Tough shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, because I try to think about it, it's like, you know what? $10,000 a year would make a huge difference in my life, but it probably won't make a huge difference in the life of a CEO.
That's the thing, exactly. If you're making 400,000, making 390 is not going to hurt you. But if you're making 40,000, making 50, that's going to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
So come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that has to happen.
Yeah, it's just like, so I guess this is my time to just say capitalism sucks. It sucks for everybody, even business owners. So it's just, when, like, if I didn't have to worry about, like, if I could offer money without having to worry about whether or not the person I'm paying has their basic needs met, I could be a bit more flexible about these things. But right now, since we need money to survive, it's a little, it's a little thornier. It's a lot thornier. Like, if I didn't have to worry about if we had universal basic income, I would not be taking such a hard last stance on a lot of these things. But yeah, it's just it's tough. But at the same time, just because it's tough, I'm going to put this word out there. It's like, just because it's tough doesn't mean you don't try. Doesn't mean that you don't put real effort into paying people what they're worth. I think sometimes, I see some companies where it's like, well, we're not Wizards of the Coast, or we're not Chaosium, or we're not these big companies, or we're not Onyx Path Publishing, so there's no way we can afford to pay people professional rates, and that's not true. Sometimes it's true, but you should always endeavor to do that as much as you can.
The things I'm going to be harder than you are on this one, because it doesn't have to be anymore. Crowdfunding has changed the way that companies can budget for their projects.
Right.
In a world where you no longer are under an absolute necessity to get the money out of your own pocket right away, you can afford to budget accordingly, to do things properly, and then go to crowdfunding. And if that doesn't work, because let's face it, there is no guarantee that a crowdfunding campaign is going to work. If that doesn't work, then you think about how you're going to cut corners. But if you're planning on a product today and you're thinking that you're going to go to, getting an intern that you can pay 2 cents a word for editing instead of the 3 to 5 that they should be getting, or that you're going to be paying $50 for an illustration instead of paying the 150 they should be getting, sorry, you are a piece of shit. You should be budgeting accordingly and trying to pay accordingly. Otherwise, you're just being mean for the sake of it, and that's very unfair.
Yeah. It's just like I'll give an example that's not RPG publishing that also kind of has this issue. Small businesses, when they say, well, we can't afford to pay our employees a living wage. Okay, sure, you don't have the Amazon money, you don't have Google money, you don't have like Disney money, but part of like you said, part of sound budgeting is paying people. And to the degree that you can, and here's my general principle is people over profit. So if you have to choose between let me put it this, let me restate myself. You want to maintain a certain level of quality for your product. But number one, you have to determine what that means. And number two, you have to invest in it. So if maintaining a certain level of quality for your product means I need the pictures and the bells and whistles and all that in order to be happy to put my name on this, okay, but you can't gripe about how expensive it is. But if high level quality means, you know what, I can't afford as much art or exactly the same type of art that I used to. However, it's like this. I have less art, but that art's going to be awesome. And I'll pay the artist what they're worth. Okay. Or I'll have, I was like, okay, well, originally this game was going to be like 300 pages, but I have to cut it down to about 200 or 250. But I'm going to pay the writers and editors what they're worth. That's what I mean. But if you're if you're attached to it being exactly a certain way, like a certain kind of tangible product, but if you're going to say, no, it has to be a 300-page hardbound, glossy page, art on every page game. And in order to afford that, I'm going to cut corners with paying people. Yeah, screw you.
Exactly.
Screw you. It's like the whole point of making a role-playing game is so that people can play the game. So if you have to make a choice, as far as quality, and I'm using air quotes here, as far as quality, that has nothing to do with the playability of the game. I'm going to be kind of side-eyeing you a little bit, where it's like, okay, so you put your money into like these little artistic flourishes on every page, but the artist got paid pennies. Yeah, no. Like me, I'd rather have. It's like, yeah, you need somebody to do layout or graphic design or whatever. You need that to actually publish a book nowadays. But like, I'd rather pay a few people what they're worth than a lot of people a pittance.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That's what I mean. So, and then that goes into how you manage a team. That goes into how you budget. That goes into stuff. But that is doing business. Those are the kinds of decisions you make as a business owner.
The way that I tend to approach this is, if you're not prepared to cut your own corner, don't cut anybody else's.
Right.
Simple as that. Don't cut anybody else's, because it's not fair on anybody. I know I am maybe a little bit freakish about this, because when I published recently Campo de Mitos, I did a crowdfunding campaign knowing that I was going to be able to make it happen fairly easily. And to be honest, the 500, I made money out of that. Okay, I'm not going to lie about it. I made some money out of it. And I paid the editor what they asked me. And I gave away 500 euros.
Okay.
To an author in need. That was part of the deal that I wanted people, if you pay 20 euros, you can pay 15 euros and you get a book. If you pay 20, I give 10 of those 20 euros to somebody else who actually needs it, so they can continue with the project.
Right.
I could have made 500 euros out of that, and I didn't. I could have made the money. I decided that I wanted to cut my own corner, but not under any circumstance cut the corner of the people who were working for me. If I have to pay, as I have paid in the past when I published books in Spain, a writer, I paid 10 cents a word, which for Spanish market is way more than the largest publisher in the country.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote an adventure for me and I paid them 250 euros. The last person I knew who wrote an adventure for the largest publisher in Spain, one of the largest publishers in Spain, they made 150 euros for every 1,000 copies of the book sold.
Okay.
Is a book that cost 40 euros. So I think somebody made the calculation and it was less than a 0.5% or something like that commission, which is ridiculous. You have to be, I decided that I wanted to be ready to do that. And if I am the person who's going to make the least amount of money to get something published so I can pay somebody else, then so be it. So be it. And I think most publishers should be able to do something similar. I'm not going to say the same thing, but they should be able to do something similar. If they're not prepared to cut their own corners, don't cut anybody else's.
Right. Yeah. That is a fair and just position to take.
Well, I mean, I don't want people to think that I'm just saying this because, Paco, you just want to take the high horse, to take the high moral ground. It's not about taking the high moral ground. It's about having the ethics and working in the way that I expect other people to work. And they criticize other people if they don't. Right. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, basically, or where somebody else's mouth is. in this case.
Right.
So I think that's how it should be. So, to this company who's trying to hire somebody to do the work, well, I'm sorry, but maybe you should consider not spending weekends away or working a few more hours to do the work yourself rather than hire somebody for that amount of money. Sorry.
Or let them work remotely. I mean,
that as well, which is something I don't understand. Why do companies still expect people to go to their offices to work, especially when they're going to be doing managerial and writing work? What is that all about?
I don't know. Honestly, I lied. I do know. I think it's about control.
Definitely, but for goodness sake, come on. Do you really want to hire somebody you don't trust?
Look, I think it's a huge control thing. It's a lot harder to micromanage people when they're not in the office. It's a lot harder to bully people who are not in the office. It's a lot harder to, engage in the, office politics when there's no office. So I was like, okay, I kind of like side-eye people who were like, okay, this job does not require me to be physically present in a building to do. Why are you forcing me to do it? Let me be in my pajamas at home in the middle of the night, get this mess done in 15 minutes like I can do. And, yeah.
I am one for look, this is what you have to do this month. Get it sorted. Done.
Right.
That's it. I don't care when you do it. I don't care how you do it. I don't care how hard you make it for yourself. Just tell me what you need to get it done. I will give you the resources you need. Just get it done.
Exactly.
And here's your money. That's it. Done.
Yeah, but see, that would actually require a shift in thinking from believing that work is time you put in. Like, a lot of people have the misconception that you're getting paid for your time. You really don't. You get paid for your labor, which is not the same thing.
Correct.
You get paid. The only reason why someone should get paid on an hourly basis is because they need to be physically present to do the job. That's it. Otherwise, you're paying people to look busy. And me, I'd rather have somebody who is like, I'd rather pay, yes, a full salary and benefits to somebody I know can get this knocked out of the park early, do it well, and I don't have to check up on how to. It's like, no, it's like me personally, I want to hire people to give me fewer headaches. So the person who's easiest to work with gets the work done on time, does it correctly, and it's like I breathe a sigh of relief when I see an email from them. Yeah, I'm going to pay full salary and benefits for that. It's like, but and then people say, but they're not working very hard, or they make it look so easy. I don't care. They're making my job easier.
Yeah,
that's why I pay them.
So oh my God, they should be sweating blood and tears to do the job because I would sweat blood and tears to do the job. What's so fucking what? Who cares? Get it done. There was a study a few years ago that proved that, at least in the UK, and I bet in the US is the same. I mean, I worked in the US for a few months in 2011, and the work ethics in that office was questionable, to say the least. But I reckon that study reckoned that essentially worker waste on average between 35 and 40% of the time they spend in the office.
That seems about right. Yeah.
Because they don't want to be there. They just don't want to be there. So they just try to make their lives more bearable by having these water cooling chats and having these breaks and staring blankly at the screen and doing things very slowly.
Yeah, it's like corporate, and this is why like me and the employment situation is so precarious. It's like I don't like being micromanaged. I don't like being paid to look busy or to make someone feel important. I like getting paid to produce results. And a lot of times, and I know how I work better than anybody else does. And when I'm giving a lot of autonomy, I work best. Excuse me. And then I noticed too is like especially when in America at least when COVID hit and like people were staying home for like 2 whole days, there was a drop in like greenhouse gas emissions. It's like so like there's all these like the whole commuting experience, like commuting and working 8 hours a day and then commuting home. The whole thing, like people were like eating healthier, they were exercising more or whatever, and they were like taking care of themselves better, at least initially. And the planet breathed a sigh of relief for like 5 whole seconds.
Yeah.
So it's clearly not about like this demand that someone be physically present in an office. Like how in the world do we get to this tangent? But like the demand to be physically present in an office or physically present at a location for a job that does not require it is, how do I say this without insulting anyone?
Oh, insult them, for goodness sake, fucking.
Oh, it's fucking stupid. I'm not saying it's fucking stupid. It's like, okay, it's bad for the planet, it's bad for the worker, it's bad for the company, and it's more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you didn't have to pay, if a person didn't have to worry about transportation costs, like just not have to worry about that at all, don't even have the budget for it. And you know, in most places in America, you need a car to get around. So that means you need a car, you need car insurance, you need gas, you need this. So all that adds to, say, the minimum salary they're going to ask for.
Correct.
Versus like someplace else that actually has, you know, a transportation infrastructure where you don't have to own a car to go be able to get to and from work. And I'm not going to talk about that. But like, could you imagine, like, and that all adds up. Like a car note adds up, gas adds up, insurance adds up. There's maintenance on the car every now and then. So it's like, you know, God forbid something actually breaks down. But like all of that stuff, and that's just for the commute. We're not talking about, okay, so you also have to pay for your lunch or whatever, so that you can eat at work. Because you can't assume that you can bring your food with you. Or that it's safe to bring your food with you because, you know, people do steal your shit. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's that. And then there's clothes that you have to wear to look professional, which are not always cheap. And especially for women, the quality of those clothes is not always up to par. So it's like, it's not like with, oh, I have a whole tirade about this, about women's fashion. Like, okay, for a man, he only needs a few pieces a few basic pieces in order to be professionally presentable, versus what a woman needs to be professionally presentable. It's so seasonal, and it's like, okay, I have to wear this, but in the dead of winter, screw you. And they never have pockets, or the pockets are fake, or they're too shallow. Oh, I have a whole thing about this. So, and I know we kind of went on this whole tangent about this, but like it goes back to the thing where it's like, okay, why are you asking for all this, but you're only willing to pay this? If you're going to pay $30,000, I'm sorry, that is, you know what? I know it's a pittance compared to what you're worth, and I know it's a pittance compared to what I definitely should be paying you, you know, regardless of what your level of experience is. But like, you don't have to get dressed. You don't have to worry about a commute. If this is $30,000, you can work from home. No problem.
Well, and that's a way to try and turn this into something less critical. But that is the kind of corners that a company can cut. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to cut yourself your own salary or whatever, but cut yourself the corner of making people come to work. Cut yourself the corner of how many responsibilities is that person going to have. You know, if you can't afford to pay 50,000 or whatever many, and you want somebody to have 20 responsibilities or 20 tasks to do, well, ask them to do less. So you can pay them less so they can work part-time instead of having to work full-time, so they can hopefully do something else in the meantime.
Right.
That
makes so much sense, Paco. That's too intelligent and compassionate.
Well, it's just ethical. It's to be honest, it's just ethics. It just makes sense.
Business. I know it's smart business too, because you're not wearing people down to the bone, and then they don't have to make these weird choices like, well, is it worth me to continue to actually bother with this opportunity that seems like a lot of fun, but it's like this is the kind of problem I've had with some jobs where it's like, okay, they want you to jump through. First of all, they want you to jump through all these hoops like you're in a damn circus just to apply for the damn thing. Mm-hmm. Then it's like, oh yeah, we're only offering this much money and it's a full-time job. So now you have to make a choice where it's like, okay, I'd love to be able to do this, but I actually have a full-time job.
Exactly.
So it's like, at least with demanding less, since you're paying less, you can actually offer this person more options where it's like, well, okay, I can swing this on the weekends or whatever, or what have you. It's like, well, as long as I know what my deliverables are, I think I can manage this. Okay. But if you just want that person to look busy or somebody you can point like that you can bother with every little thing, yeah, no, that's not worth it. It's like, no, I'm not going to be bothering with that.
Okay, so let's bring this to a wrap because we've been talking about this for 56 minutes and 35 seconds, and that's what Skype's telling me. I think there are two major things that we should take from this conversation and people should take from this conversation. One is people. Be prepared to pay more and value your games more, for goodness sake. They're going to last years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have games that I could still play, and they are 30 years old.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and you know what, Paco? Now that I think about it, role-playing games should be on par with video games as far as how much you pay.
But the thing is that even video games are not as expensive as they should be. They should be pricier, way pricier. And don't get me wrong, video game companies make a shit ton of money. Mm-hmm. And the people working in the video games industry, they don't get paid badly, but they get paid very badly for the amount of work, the hours, the constraints, and the stress that they are put under. That is a whole different kind of worms, I can tell you.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, when you consider like the replay value and stuff like that, it's like, don't compare it to role-playing games 30, 40 years ago. Compare it to other sorts of like repeat entertainment today.
Good point.
Yeah.
That is a very, very good point. Absolutely, yes. And the second thing is that companies should budget way better than they budget, and they should plan their businesses way more cleverly than they do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I would highly recommend, like again, don't consider this an expense, consider an investment. Take some kind of business course, some kind of budgeting course, something, so that you're not, how do I say this? So you're not making this up as you go along. Because I believe that's, I think there's some companies out there that are just cheap and exploitative. But I think a lot of people do mean well, but they don't know better. So learn. Good Invest point. In your product and in yourself. This is just basic, like a basic business course. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated or anything. I'm not asking you to get an MBA. I'm just saying like basic business management or basic budgeting or something where it's like, how to start your own business 101. This is what it takes to start your own business. Just like with your publishing thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to publish an RPG? Here's what goes into it. It's the same thing with like running a business. So it's like learn these skills. These are skills you'll need anyway. So at least go in with your eyes open. Learn this stuff so that you can do better from the beginning than trying to course correct after you've been screwing up for a while.
I like that an awful lot, and I think that's a beautiful note to end this podcast on. Listeners, viewers, I would love to hear what you have to say. So please do leave some comments in the video description or in the show notes or whatever you like. Get in touch in Facebook or get in touch in Twitter. You have all the addresses and all the links and all the everything in the show notes. So I'm not going to repeat everything because otherwise I'm just going to get annoying, even more annoying. Pardon, I don't want to. But do get in touch. And by the way, if you want us to talk about anything in particular, we're all ears. We'd love to hear what you want us to talk about. And I'm sure that we can come up with some incredible opinions about whatever.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So, until the next time, I am Paco Garcia.
And I'm Sean Harris.
And we'll talk to you very soon. Take care.
Right. Bye-bye.